Yeah, I think Dr. Swaiman Singh has joined, so we can start the session.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Mansuri, and welcome everyone to this session on approach to internal medicine residency. And we have three esteemed speakers who have agreed to talk on this session today. And let me welcome the first speaker, our distinguished guest, Dr. Swaiman Singh, a person who doesn't need any introduction. He's a very popular figure on Instagram, and he has done so much in the humanitarian sector for people. He's a cardiology fellow currently at Mayo Clinic, Rochester, and he has completed his residency from Drexel University. If I read out the list of his accomplishments, I guess that will take us the entire session. So I would request him to kindly take over and speak a little and shed light on his inspirational journey to where he is right now. Over to you, sir. So you're on mute. Wait. Dr. Mansuri, can you unmute him, please?
I think he's co-host. Let me see what happened there. Give me 1 second. It's every time someone comes in, the whole thing moves. So it's difficult to. Give me 1 second. Okay, I think I've asked him to unmute. He has to unmute. So, Dr. Singh, can you click unmute?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you. Sorry about that.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
So we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Anish, for the kind introduction. Sorry, I've been running around this morning, so it was a little late. Yeah, so my name is Swaiman Singh. I'm a third-year cardiology fellow at Mayo Clinic, Rochester. Just like most of you guys, had a tough road. Had to do a lot to get to where I was. So I can kind of relate to you, whatever you're going through, the struggles you're going through, and I think this is a great platform, something that I didn't have, and I'm so grateful for the team who's setting all this up so that people can talk to each other and maybe guide you guys better. And then our hope from this session will be that everyone that gets helped by sessions like these comes back and becomes part of the platform and tries to help more people, because there's no point in helping people where the bus stops, right? So the goal is that all you guys, and I'm sure all you guys will get into residencies, and the goal is that you guys give back and help other people behind you, because there's definitely a great need, and there's definitely a long road of good international medical students. And if you look at the American health system and everything that the international grads have given it, that tells you that how much potential we have from the international medical grads. And if you look at the system now, it's really not set up for you, right? It's not set up with the way the step one has changed. It's kind of set up, to kind of put you to the side, I'm sorry to say, but so you have to do better. You have to find ways to do better. And I think hopefully through this session, we can talk about things, how we can prepare you best for this match and maybe in the future as well. So Anish, I'll take any questions and we'll kind of start it from there.
Thank you, sir, for the introduction. I was thinking we can just introduce the speakers and then we can start the question and answer session, if that's okay with you. Okay. I would like to introduce my co-host, Dr. Esha, who would now take over and introduce our next speaker.
Hello, everyone. With great pleasure, I introduce Dr. Rakesh Kanipakam. He's a nephrologist at Ann Arbor, Michigan. He began working as an and he teaches medical students and residents. After pursuing MBBS at RIMS, Kadapa, India, he did research at Mayo Clinic for 2 years and then completed his residency in Michigan and fellowship at Brown University for 2 years in nephrology and hypertension. Welcome, Dr. Rakesh. We would love to hear everybody's story, and then we can follow it up with questions. Thank you so much.
Hey, Esha, thanks for the introduction.
there's an echo thing as well.
Hello.
I think Dr. Rakesh has echo from his microphone.
What about now? Is it
No,
better?
That's
yeah,
better.
yeah, it's okay now. It's fine.
That's better. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if there are like multiple speakers, I mean multiple people who have their unmuted, then I think the echo will start to come. This is better. Okay. Hello everyone. And my name is Rakesh. I'm currently working as a nephrologist in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I just started my, the waiver job is what we call it. Once you're on J1 visa, I mean, people who are at Mayo will know about this. Like, who are on J1 visa, they'll have to do their waiver job. That's what I'm doing. Luckily, I found my waiver job exactly at the same residency where I did, where I did my residency. My road was a little tricky. Coming from a small college in South India, which was brand new, there was pretty much nobody who applied for residency. There's not a lot of resources. This was like 10 years ago. So I had to join research at Mayo to get myself exposed to to all the clinical experiences, research. Luckily, I was able to do some research back in med school. We were going and talking about some, presentations and stuff like that in conferences. So it helped me to get the Mayo experience, and then, from there, it gives you a good platform to to kind of pursue whatever you want to do, like fellowships wise, not just residency but fellowships wise. So once you get good letters, good research experience, it becomes really easy. Unfortunately, the path to residency has become very hard for the last like 3 to 4 years. Talking to a lot of juniors who are coming from my college or other places, definitely the AMG ratio has gone up compared to what it was, like I would say 6-7 years ago. So we all have to be like on our toes, finish everything on time. There's no time to slack work here. Get good scores, good experiences. I think it is still easily doable. People are still getting matched. A lot of people are still getting matched, like especially from IMG community. So it's not difficult, but at the same time, it's not that easy as it was. So we're all here to help you, and hopefully, good luck for everyone. And I'll be looking forward to work with you guys in future. And you can also help other people, like how we are doing.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Rakesh. And we do have a third speaker for internal medicine, and he'll be joining us at 2:30 p.m. EST. Meanwhile, we can start a question and answer session. And firstly, I would like to ask Dr. Swaiman to tell us a little bit about his journey from India, how he started off as a medical student and how he reached to where he is right now.
Yeah, so thank you. So basically, I actually moved from India when I was 10. So I've been living in the United States since I was 10. I did leave India, but my heart really never left. So I always had, inner connection that I didn't want to leave, So I always found a way to work and to give back. And one of my dreams was to go back to India for medical school. And so I did. I went to Manipal. And at that time, they bought one of the Caribbean schools. And basically what I ended up doing was doing 2 years in India and then 2 years in America for rotations. So I was considered an international medical graduate. I got, what I realized early, and I would tell you, is that you can do a lot. You can change a lot. You can always add on research. You can always add on stuff on your resume. But something you can never change is your step scores. And till this day, when I went to India for the humanitarian crisis, that was the farmers' protest. When I came back and I reapplied for my fellowship, what still was there was my research and my scores. So what I'm saying is you can never change your scores. So if you're a student and you're taking your step 1 or you're taking your step 2 or your step 3, remember to give it all. That should be your prime focus, because that can never be taken away from you. So that's how I was. I focused on my scores, and luckily got good scores. And once I had the scores, I was able to focus on research. So when I applied for my residency, I got into Drexel. Being a university hospital made it easy to do research. I was involved in basic science research, doing experiments on mice. I also involved myself into other research, started with some case reports and then meta-analysis and things of that sort. And everything got, as the time progressed, the resume got bigger, right? So, if you're, just coming out of medical school and you're getting overwhelmed, like I don't have this, 100, research papers, then it's okay. You're not supposed to have 100 research papers when you're coming out of medical school. It takes time for you to build that resume, but how you can, make sure you do the things that you're supposed to do at that time. So, that was me. So I basically, did my, got my scores, and as time progressed, was able to add on research. Got into cardiology fellowship, got into interventional cardiology fellowship, and then the farmers' protest happened. It was my vacation time. I was in India. I saw what was going on. I couldn't leave. So I ended up giving up my third year of cardiology fellowship. I gave up my interventional cardiology fellowship. And the reason I gave it up was the people that I became doctor for were literally dying on the streets. They were living on the streets, and they were fighting for their livelihood. So if I became a doctor for the right reasons, then there was never a bigger moment. When you have, in the middle of a COVID pandemic, people living on streets, drinking dirty water, eating dirty food. And as a doctor, as a human being, it was my duty to serve my people. And there was never a greater time in need. So I thought, that, if I had to give up my fellowship, then it's okay. Because, for me as a doctor, as a human being, the conditions on the ground were unacceptable. And I told myself I'll take care of that when the time comes. So the time was that I had to help. So I stayed in India during the farmers' protest for over 12 months. We built a hospital on the ground. We had over 1,000 doctors that came in and out and helped us. We served over 100,000 patients over the time of span of 1 year. We even helped out in Delhi, Haryana, Punjab. In the COVID pandemic, there was a huge lack of resources. So we went at night from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. in the morning. We would go out in Delhi. We would help out in Haryana. We had our own, 2 ambulances. We had oxygen concentrators. We had full supply of COVID medications that we would give up. So we helped over 250 patients in that time span during the COVID pandemic, helping with in-house consultation. So we have great stories from that. And there was some other stuff, apart from that. We built, 3,000 homes on the ground, clean water initiative, clean food initiative, built a library, built a dental clinic. So as a team, we were able to do a lot. Then, came the Ukraine crisis. Our team helped there for 60 days. We had our own telemedicine service through which we were able to support. And then we had a tie-up with some of the Polish doctors and Ukrainian doctors, so we helped through that. Now I'm back at Mayo. I restarted my, my research work. I'm now involved in cardiac regenerative therapy work at Mayo Clinic as part of my research. I'm also involved in some global health initiatives. We set up a clinic in India where it's going to be serving as a site of rotation. The big thing I saw was students here coming from overseas, spending thousands of dollars on rent, spending so much money and getting misguided and really were being abused. So I thought, what was one way we can make it easy for them? And again, this platform started by Dr. Mansuri is amazing. And I think some people don't realize it until you were in that situation where you had to struggle to find research and mentorship and gave thousands of dollars to have people write, help you on your letters and things of that sort. So what we are trying to do is make it easy. Find people in America who will help these international students land into rotations, help these kids get rotations back in India, where we can serve as mentors through telemedicine, through other sort of things, go on the ground, do camps with these kids. But the big goal is we see the potential. We see the potential in international medical graduates. They're hardworking people. They have done nothing wrong. They just want to help. They just want to help in a country that has probably the most medical resources possible. But I also tell you guys, I think most of the people here, maybe probably from the Indian background or Pakistani background, I'm not sure, but you also owe something back home, right? So you guys, we are part of the brain drain. We are part of the crisis that's India right now, the lack of healthcare and lack of facilities and lack of everything, right? So yes, you guys work hard, get your residencies here, but always remember you were born in India for a reason. God gave you birth in that country for a reason. So you always should look back 5 years down the road when you're physicians and you're making good money to somehow support the people. Yes, support the doctors, but also support your homeland. So yes, you owe something to America. America's going to give you a lot. You're going to be doctors one day. But always remember to find a way to give back to India. You were born there for a reason. So that's what I'm doing. My life, my career is going to be oriented in such a way where I'm going to be a doctor in America. I'm going to do my best at Mayo Clinic. I'm going to try to be a mentor. I'm going to try to be a role model for whoever I can. But at the same time, I always have it in my back pocket that I owe something to India. I was born there. The people there gave me the opportunity to be whatever I am today, right? So always looking to give back. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here today, thinking that I can give back. I can, be a mentor, or at least whatever we can talk about in this 1 hour to say, work hard, do your best, and we'll try to do our best to help you. But, it's hard. It's hard. You have to fight. You have to go. You have, when you're sleepy, you forget sleeping, go help, go support, go find a way. And whenever you go and whenever you go search for things, whenever you work hard, doors always open up to you. I'm not saying you'll get what you want, but many doors open up when we open up, we go out and struggle. So go struggle, work hard, you'll always find a way. That was my way.
Thank you so much, sir, for providing such a beautiful insight into your inspirational journey. And you reinforced the importance of STEP scores, coming back to the residency journey, the importance of STEP scores for graduates who are applying. But I've realized that there is a lack of a streamlined process for gaining some research experience as well, once you have attained your scores. So my question is directed to both of you as to how one can pursue research opportunities in the US.
I'll start if you don't mind, Dr. Kanipakam, if I'm saying it right.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah, so I can start, because I think you had a different route, and I think you should talk about that with Mayo. So my route was never like Mayo, right? What I would guide you guys is, when you're a medical student, right? What can you do? The easiest thing you can do is case reports. So all you have to do is have something on your resume, right? Where when we say publications, there has to be 1, 2, 3, 4 things that pop up. And if they pop up, then you're in good hands. So it doesn't matter if you're in India, you're in Africa, you're in the middle of nowhere. If you're a doctor and you're working, you're going to find some patients that you help diagnose that have an odd story. You want to tell the world how maybe you help these patients, and whatever story that was, diagnose something different. That's a case report. Forget the meta-analysis, forget, all these other basic science and crazy stuff that we're doing. Go find a case report from day to day, your medical work. If you it doesn't matter if you're in India, wherever you are, if you work in a lab, in a clinic for 16 weeks, you'll find at least 2 or 3 patients to write about. And you can try to submit those things to, if it's cardiology, ACC, AHA, we have like tons of like 8-10 conferences, where you can submit your stuff to. If it's hematology, if it's oncology, if it's nephrology, they have so many conferences around the year. So as soon as you get it, try to look, where can I submit it? And if you're internal medicine, you have ACP and you have these local things. And then Mayo has its own stuff, their own conferences. And if you submit it there, there's a highly likelihood that it'll get accepted somewhere. And that's a publication for you that you can put on your resume, and it counts, right? So it has literally the same weight as somebody publishing something in JAG. I mean, they both get one, right? So I think the easiest thing for an international student to do is these type of things. We at our own clinic in Anandpur Sahib in Punjab, what we're trying to do is, because see, I'm at Mayo, right? I can't share my patient data with you, right? I cannot give you research if you're not with me at Mayo. Like we have, HIPAA and all these violations. So we can't do that. I know people who do meta-analysis. That's something easy for you to do if you learn it. I know people, once you learn the art of meta-analysis, you can do so many, right? Meta-analysis is something you can think about doing. We at our clinic in India, what we're putting into play is things with global health initiatives. And our hope is every 3 months, 6 months, we'll have a publication. And the way I look at research, international research, global health research is, I have a question, right? And I'm going to try to answer that question. And so many people look at research, like, why do you do, I just want publications. Well, that's okay for a medical student or intern, but when you're, I guess, at my stage, you have to have a reason for why you do research. And the reason I do my research is I'm trying to find answers, and I can share with you. So when I do my global health research, what I'm trying to say is, okay, the Indian health system is here. I'm trying to get it here. How can we get it from point A to point B? What questions do I need to ask? Why are these patients not taking their medications? Find the answers to those things, and then put changes into play. You can't just go in and say, oh, you know what? Indian health system is bad. I'm going to make these 1, 2, 3, 4 changes and it's going to be good. No, first you have to study the system, see what's wrong with it, then implement changes at a small level. And then if they work, present it so it can be implemented at a large level. So that's my research. That's the way I look at research when it looks to India. Then it's basic science research that I'm doing. For that, you need to be in a university place. Go look out if you're interested in basic science research. Every university hospital has an engineering department, has a biology department, chemistry department, you name it. They have a genetics department. And whatever area you're interested in, try to go, say, hey, I'll work for free. And that's what I think Mayo does too, where you come in, usually you work for free. And then I think after like 9 months, if you work hard enough, they usually like support you with a stipend. I've had friends who work, researched at Mayo as medical students and that sort. So, but it's very hard to get your foot in the door, but people do. It's not, and I think Dr. Rakesh will talk about that. The other research I do is in the hospital. Once you get into the hospital, see what your hospital does. So from my cardiology standpoint, I can tell you, so my hospital, we do a lot of TAVR. We do a lot of this, we do a lot of that, right? So what I say is, I go and I say, okay, again, you have to have a question. So I say, one of the easiest things you can do is, how well are we doing this thing? What are the outcomes that we're seeing? Whenever we do TAVR, we're having 2% stroke, from our hospital. Compare that to the national database. Take your hospital stuff, compare it to the national database. And let's say the national database say the stroke risk after TAVR is 3%. Oh, you're doing good. Then look at what you're doing in your hospital that you're better than the national average, and write about it. Go talk to your doctors. So this is amazing. This is the easy way, right? So if you're in hematology oncology, you're treating certain type of cancer and you're having a success rate of that, or you're seeing this type of side effect. Look at the national database. See how the other hospitals are doing in the area. And if you're doing better or if you're doing worse, doesn't matter what it is, or if you're doing the same, just write about it. Say, hey, you looked at your database, you looked at the national database, and this is what you saw, and this is what you think, and then So that's the way I look at research global health. I look at basic science, and then I look at more like just asking questions in the hospital, and seeing how you can improve those things. So this is the stuff that I'm doing. Over to you, Dr. Rakesh.
Yeah, that's wonderful information. So as my path was a little different. I started with research, and the only way from my experience to get into research in US is get some research experience, like our previous mentor said. Get case reports in India, like when you're a medical student, try to go conferences, try to present like posters. It doesn't have to be case reports. It can be just about some topic that you've noticed. It can be about like prevention, from community medicine. Like present some topics in conferences that gains you some experiences and builds your CV, and take that CV and send to like mass emails to whatever, or you can actually pick a location where you want to do research. Like for example, Mayo Clinic, and there's a big database about all the emails for the mentors who are doing research projects at Mayo. So what I did was I sent like maybe like 100, 200 emails in areas that I wanted to do. I was initially interested in pediatrics, so I applied in pediatrics, critical care, and one of the pediatricians replied to me back, "Hey, your research back in India looked good. I want to join with you. Let's have an interview." And then you do a Zoom interview with them. Once you're in, they will sponsor your visa. You have to support yourself financially for the first 1 year or something, like 6 months to 1 year. But after that, if they like your work, if there's funding in their research projects, they can start paying you some $3,000, $4,000 a month. That depends upon the type of projects, but you do have to be patient. You do have to be persistent. And you have to be like really hardworking. It's not easy to send like 200 emails when you're preparing for your step 1 or step 2, right? So it needs a little work. I think that's the only way you can get in, unless you already have friends here, who are doing research, and they know a research position open, and they can suggest your name. So that's the other way. That from my experience, I actually there was one more batch before me who started this research fellow research trainee situation in Mayo Clinic, Rochester. I was like the second group, like we were like 4 or 5 people who were there who started all this. And then I think now it has grown to quite a big number. Like I think like from last year, I heard like 50 to 100 people, medical, graduates from India, from Pakistan, like, they're doing research, which is fantastic. So maybe we can, maybe they can kind of create a group and help people who are coming now and who are graduating or getting into residency. They're leaving and leaving their positions open. So people who are graduating and coming to US to start their journeys, maybe they can kind of who are interested in particular areas, they can try to contact them. That's something we can plan for in future. But sending the emails to there's just not Mayo Clinic. There's just Beth Israel. There's Harvard, Hopkins, Emory, UMass. All these big places. They always do different kinds of research in different areas, and there's always positions open. You just have to pick one area where you want to go, pick a big university, hospital, Cleveland Clinic, just, and then start writing to their research investigators, like, hey, I'm interested in research, I'm happy to come in for 6 months, 1 year. You have to show them commitment. I know a lot of mentors in Mayo who ask for step 3 as well. So you're not, you don't come to Mayo and then you're studying for your steps. So there's one, I think there are a few people who prefers that, you're a graduate with good scores, and then you've done some research back in India, then you're done with your steps. So you can come, and you have to devote yourself for like 1-2 years with them, build your, your CV, and then apply. There's always people who come and then right away apply, but you're not really showing your work in your CV because you don't have any publications at that point. But a couple of my friends actually, even they had everything, like they had their step 3, they joined around like March, April at Mayo, say example like 2014, they could have applied for 2015 match and September because they had everything, like steps and everything, but they didn't. They said, I'm committed to this research program, I want to be part of this research project, and they waited for 2015 September. They had a very good scores. They then had a couple of publications. they went to a couple of conferences that kind of catapulted their overall CV, and they matched into Cleveland Clinic. If they applied in 2014 with good scores in year of graduation, which is pretty new, they could have matched into a community program without a doubt. But they waited and worked on their research. Not just waiting, like you're not just kind of time passing there, right? You're working there. So they waited. They had a couple of publications, and they went into Cleveland Clinic. One of my friends is actually in GI. He's doing GI fellowship in Mayo right now. Parthasarthi. So he did that. A couple of my friends did that. So you have to be patient. You have to work hard, especially because it's just getting hard for IMGs. There's no point denying that compared to 5-10 years ago. Because you were not competing with AMGs before, especially for IM. You were always competing with AMGs for dermatology, surgery, or something fancy residency. But your internal medicine, family medicine, psychiatry, pediatrics, you were not competing with AMGs before. You were just competing with other IMGs with good scores, not a good scores, research, or year of graduation, all that stuff. Now you are just directly competing with good AMGs who the people have worked with. The problem is a lot of medical schools have been established, not just in Caribbean, but also in US. So a lot of community programs, they have medical students coming from their local medical schools rotating with them. So they know these people really well. So they're gonna prefer them to a candidate who needs a visa, who didn't have good scores, who graduated a little old. So you're competing yourself with the AMG. So obviously you have to show them you worked hard, you're committed, and you've done extra work, that's all the program director sees. How committed you are, how focused you are, and what do you get to the program? What do you give the program extra, compared to someone else sitting next to you? So that's what the program director sees in you. And if you do that hard background work, I think it's still not easy. It's still not impossible to get into residency, as long as you have your CV and everything kind of worked out.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rakesh and Dr. Singh. I think you have covered most of the aspects related to research and CV building. I would now hand over the session to Dr. Ishaan. He's a wonderful medical student from India, and he'll introduce our third esteemed speaker for the session.
Thank you, Dr. Anish. So our third speaker, Dr. Uvesh, he's from Bukovinian State Medical University, and then he continued to complete his residency from MedStar Health. And he also has an MPH from the prestigious Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. And now I would like Dr. Uvesh to please take up the stage and give an insight into his journey, how he managed and everything.
Hey, good afternoon, guys. How are you? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
All right. Sorry, I'm still at work. Thank you for the invite. I'm happy to be here. When Ishaan reached out yesterday, it was kind of a short notice. So I told him if you guys are okay with me chatting from work, he's like, it should be okay. So I was able to squeeze in a half an hour. So as you mentioned, I graduated from Ukraine. I did the MCI FMG screening exam back then in 2012. And I did my internship in India for a year in Ahmedabad, which was actually a pretty good experience. I think that kind of helped me get a very good clinical acumen. I think that gives us all our IMGs an edge, especially which I see during residency training in second year, how the IMGs, especially from India or other South Asian countries, do compared to the AMGs and other Caribbean graduates. Also, I did my master's in public health in New York and Mount Sinai. It was there actually where I had the opportunity to get in touch, as earlier our esteemed speakers mentioned about how to get in touch, finding a mentor and working with them to build up your CV for research. So that's what kind of actually I did through my MPH. We were a group of our students were able to find very good attending nephrologist who helped us we started from scratch of data sorting to eventually being able to be part of meta-analysis. So I worked there after my MPH as a research assistant with him for a year and a half. I did rotations all over, and luckily I got my rotation here in MedStar Health. So I worked here in MedStar Health as an observer. It was not even an externship. I got an observership opportunity for 3 weeks, and I got it because it was an empty spot, because it was holiday time. So there was not too many people willing to come in. And I got squeezed in 3 weeks. I worked with a couple of attendings, and one of them was actually a faculty and associate program director here. And that's how I kind of got an interview here, because they were kind of happy with my work and dedication, helping with working with the residents. And eventually I ended up matching here. So that was briefly a story, which kind of sums up the past 10 years. But if you guys have any specific question about what to expect or what to do, I think Dr. Singh pretty nicely summed up, although I joined late, about how getting into research. I just wanted to add to that is what the programs look for is just not the number of publications or the type of publication, but I think the program director in our program, at least, they see it as a skill that you have that actually drives the students to learn more. So whenever you're doing a research, you're not just doing it to get like yourself published, but to also learn more about the topics. And if you're picking up a topic in critical care or GI or cardiology, you are doing a deep dive into the topic. You're actually trying to master that topic, and you're learning so much that actually kind of increases your knowledge, which eventually you're going to apply into clinical practice, unless you are just working as a bench researcher. So that is a very good skill to have, and that in the long term helps you become a good physician overall. That's what I feel. And that's something we have as a privilege here in US compared to other developing nations, where we don't have funding or we don't have the opportunity to do so much research. So take it as a skill to develop, and rather than just having the number or that name on the CV to show off, but to actually be proud of and to showcase your work in a skill during an interview. So that's how I would see it.
Hello, I would like to ask a question. Thank you for sharing your insights about research and internal medicine. So one problem that I faced when applying for research opportunities in the US was they asked to send for your CV. Unfortunately, due to lack of mentorship at my medical school, I did not have a profile. I had a couple of case reports only, and I realized that if I'm sending for an application for research position at Mayo, I do not have an experience that can match up to it. So what do you think research, what should our CV comprise of if we are applying for such high-level research experiences in the US?
So, I mean, you're applying to get a research experience. I mean, your experience just with applying at Mayo, right? But there are tons and tons of programs out there. For example, my own, MedStar Health have their own separate institute. It's called MedStar Health Research Institute, but nobody knows about it, right? They have tons of position available. MedStar Health has their own data set, which is like kind of a huge data set, because we are a very large group over here in DC and Maryland area. And even in big institute, for example, when I was at Mount Sinai, the research I was doing with the mentor, that was just one of the groups. There were like at least 50 other groups, in the Department of Cardiology, Pediatrics, you name it. So there were like different groups doing different research. Especially John Hopkins, I think there's one rotation that we all do during residency that is just focused in critical care with one of the physicians there at Hopkins. And he's just one of those researchers who's taking a lot of residents under their wing, medical students. And the medical students actually who work with him in critical care, they end up matching in our program. In the same way, in Hopkins itself, there were like 2 other faculties who were running their own research projects, and the students were joining them. A lot of people from India, actually, one of my interns, she's now doing a rheumatology fellowship. So she did like a 6 to 8 month research at Hopkins under one of the faculty. And she had, just like you, applied from India. She didn't have any experience. So I think it's also about the way you approach. Like you have to find out what exactly those people are working on. And if you show them your genuine interest, they actually need people to work, right? There is a need for med students, residents, for people to come in, help them with their work, because there's always a lot of work in research. So it's about finding that interest, finding that person whose work you are actually genuinely interested in. And I think that should do the trick.
when you come to Mayo, like a place like Mayo, right? And listen, these people were in your shoes. Like if you're just coming out of medical school, and if you're telling me you have all the experiences in the world to do research, there's probably something wrong. Like you go to middle school, you go to high school, you go to college, and you go to medical school. There's a pathway, right? How much you can gain, and there's 24 hours in a day. If you're doing something else, you're not doing something else. You know what I mean? So I think most of the mentors, the good mentors, understand that if you're coming out, you're this age, what to expect out of you. And if you can complete a medical school, be so competitive that you went to medical school, completed a medical school, are doing USMLE exams, there's great potential, right? That means you're something, right? You are hardworking. You just need mentorship. So I think what places like Mayo and MedStar and Hopkins and all things, and Mayo is a little different because I think Mayo gets a lot of support from independent donors, and I think MedStar does too, probably from NIH, and same as Hopkins. So they have special cells and a lot of money built up. Like all the attendings get money on the side that they can give to other people, like research associates. And so, and what Mayo has is inbuilt system where they have all these ways to learn about research. So once you are hooked up with a mentor, be honest with them, like, hey, I'm going to be signing up for this much time, and this is what I'm going to be doing, and this is what I want to learn. And he can probably enter you into courses while you're at Mayo that you will be able to learn how to do, different type of research that he needs you to do. So I think, you have to come to a place that can kind of nourish you and kind of help you as well while you're giving back to that place. And like one thing Dr. Rakesh said, sometimes people say they come, they get, they use the system and then they run away. As soon as they're done, they run away. And that's something that don't have that mentality. If you come to Mayo, have that plan to stay here for a year, 2 years. And the reason I say it is you'll end up at a better place for residency. But moreover, Mayo is one of those places, once you are here, if you want to come back in 5 years and work at Mayo, and if you have that research experience, that one letter from that researcher that you worked with can get you that job at Mayo as an attending. And I have seen this many times. So be loyal to the place that you go. Be honest with your mentor who's going to put in his time to train you. So make sure you give back 1 year, 2 years, whatever you want. I mean, I'm not saying more than that, but make sure you're honest, and Mayo has a lot to give back, and they will train you in a lot of things that you need help with.
Thank you, doctors. I have one more question. That I saw a question in the audience. From the audience, not everyone can afford to join a research position for 6 months or 1 year. Can an applicant apply for participate in research in the US while being in India? Somewhere else, like a remote research opportunity?
So that's what I've kind of opened up. It's very hard. It's not easy because I can't share data, like patient data with you. So we basically built a clinic in India. We're hoping to expand the clinics to several areas. And the big reason we're doing that is through these places, we'll be able to do at least global health research, outreach, cohort studies, and we can do a lot. And we're setting ourselves up for that. But then, you can only bring in so many people. I'm not Mayo Clinic, so we are only starting. So we're doing our best. But one of our goals is to see if we can adjust you and help you there in India. But I think sometimes you have to pick up, and 6 months, 3 months, I know it's a struggle, and I hate to say it. I know money is an issue, but coming to America, getting that experience is important as well. Like, yeah, doing global health research and working in our clinic is great, but I wouldn't want you to say, oh, this is all you want to do. But it'll get you into residency, but I want you to do more. Come to America, and if you can get into Mayo and Hopkins and those things, then definitely, if your goal is to be at a university hospital, do these things. If you're okay just doing any type of residency at a community place, this, that, then I think case reports and, meta-analysis here and there, these type of things are more than enough. When you're coming to Hopkins or things, that's when you're trying to do bench research and heavy research. That's going to be for 1-2 years, and you're actually interested in that, in research. So make sure you have a clear goal in mind of what you want to achieve, because you can always take the other road, go do a MPH, Masters in Public Health, or some other road, right? So make sure research is of your interest, and you want, that's something that you see yourself doing for the rest of your life. And because there are many other roads you can take, and it's not just research.
Okay, thank you, Doctor doctors, for giving such an elaborate explanation on that. So my question is about fellowships. As after matching into an IIM residency, if one wants to go to a competitive fellowship, for example, as Dr. Swaiman is in cardiology, Dr. Rakesh is in nephrology, how competitive is that? Like, is it on a similar scale as with residency, or is it easier? And do we have to like keep in mind like what do we want to match into yeah, right from the beginning, like before the residency itself? Like if I want to go into cardiology, then I should start planning for cardio, or for nephrology, then I should start for nephrology. So if you can please elaborate on that.
Sure. So most of the, getting into residencies are definitely more tougher than getting into fellowship in US. There are a lot of fellowships which are not competitive. You can just walk in, like infectious disease, endocrinology, and even nephrology is also like you can match into pretty big universities, and you have to do some minimal research for it. Getting into fellowships like cardiology, GI, hem-onc, pulmonary, these are the competitive ones, and you don't really have to work before you join a residency to get into these. But at the same time, once you start your residency, you need to know which subspecialty you want to get into. And once you have that idea in like first 2-3 months, then you would have to start working towards it. There's obviously GI mentors in your residency program who you can start collaborating with. You can start talking to people who are who matched into fellowships like that from your program. Try to get connections and see if they are working on any projects that you can collaborate to. And so it's not at all difficult, but working hard throughout your residency is important to getting into these competitive fellowships like GI cards. You really have to work hard, because a lot of these programs, these fellowships, they also look at your scores, they look at your research, how many publications you have, how many conferences you've attended, what kind of work you've done, and how committed you are, because you're gonna be doing all this in your fellowship too. Like once you join your cardiology fellowship, it's not okay, I'm done, I'm okay for the life. You will be working really hard again. They expect you, they expect you to maintain some standards. You have your own research 6 months, or based on whatever program you go to. I think Mayo has like almost like 8 months, 10 months, if I'm not wrong, in GI, where I was working, and I used to work with GI clinical fellows who almost had like big bulks of their third year just dedicated towards research, and they're working really hard. Like they're just not relaxing. So it's not difficult. It's not as difficult as getting into residency, that's for sure, because a lot of IM grads, they end up being a primary care physician, hospitalist, so the competition definitely goes down. But still, it's getting into GI cards, you really have to work hard during your residency, which can be done regardless of a community program that you're in. Even if you're in like a very small community program, with right mentors and right connections, and you work hard, you can always stand out and get good letters from your program, and you can match into any community program for fellowship. You might not go to Cleveland Clinic or University of Michigan or something like that, but you can always match into community programs that have fellowships. Yeah.
So from my experience, getting into a cardiology fellowship is definitely hard, but it's obviously, if I can do it, then you can do it as well, right? So that's the way I look at it. If the other person did it, I can do it as well. So let me just see what he did so I can copy that. And the biggest thing you have to have is scores. If you don't have the scores, then you're in a tough place. But if you got the scores, you have the scores, you have the residency, I don't care where you are, you might be at a community program, whatever program, doesn't matter. Work hard, make sure your program director writes you a nice letter. What I've seen is people with a bunch of publications, good scores, and their program director does not write them a letter. You will not get into a fellowship. because program director's letter means a lot. So make sure you have a good relationship with your program director. Make sure you're working hard. You're able to get good 3 or 4 letters. Letters are a huge thing when it comes to fellowship. If somebody can pick up the phone, your program director has a lot of links. And all you need is one program to trust you. Sometimes there's an in-house fellowship that you might be going for. So if you work hard enough for 3 years and your program director picks up your phone call, there's a good chance you're getting into a fellowship. So biggest focus for you when it comes to getting a fellowship is working hard in residency, giving it your all, and being honest and working hard, right? Once you do that, you'll have the letters, you'll have mostly everything you need to get into a fellowship. The other thing you can do is you can either do research while you're in residency, or there's always another way. Many American students are doing this. After residency, you take a year off. You go off into Hopkins, you go into Mayo. So before residency, you could have done it, or you do it after residency. And that also puts you at a great place to get into a fellowship. So getting into a fellowship is much easier than getting into residency, even though it's more competitive, because now you're financially better. You have, the world opens up to you. You have a chance to, get a bunch of case reports. So definitely you can do it. Getting into residency is the big step. Get into residency, work hard. You'll likely get into the fellowship that you want.
Thank you so much, Dr. Singh and Dr. Rakesh. Since a lot of people who have joined the meeting today have already applied for the internal medicine residency match this year, what would be your advice to them to do while waiting for the interviews, as well as the importance of step 3 into matching into a good internal medicine program?
So I'll start with this, I guess. One thing, the worst thing people do is just wait. Oh, somebody didn't match for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and you're talking to them the 4th year, and you're like, okay, what did you do in the 4 years? Nothing. So what makes you think that you'll get into residency the 4th year that you didn't get into the first 3 years? So what I say is everyone that has applied, have a mindset that you're not going to get in, that you're not going to be matched. So you have now so many months before the next match. So applying to Mayo, applying to other these research programs. This is a time to get into a research program. Because a lot of people have left. They have, there's a lot of vacant spots. People think I'm going to match, so I don't need to go and do research. But this is actually the best time to go and get your application ready for the year after next. So, this is the time to go and work and even though it's not going to go into your application, but when you do go into your interview, and they ask you, what are you doing? You can be like, oh, I'm at Mayo, or I'm at Hopkins, or I'm at MedStar, or I'm at this community hospital, and I'm working with this person, and I'm doing this. Whereas you're like, oh yeah, I'm just giving interviews. So you'll have a much higher chance to match this year and next year if you actually make full use of this time, whether you're doing MPH or whether you're going out and doing research, or just working with a mentor and working in a hospital, trying to build your CV. So definitely don't sit around. This is the time to work on your application in case you don't get in this year.
Thank you, Dr. Swaiman, for explaining that. I have another question. Networking is something that IMGs struggle with, be it application for residency, and then we will face the same thing again during fellowship. So, and in general, we are not as outspoken as AMGs are, as candid. We tend to be a little hesitant. Do you have any advice about it? And this is a question for everyone.
I can start. I mean, I was never good with networking. I don't care about networking. What my answer is: work hard, get your scores, get it. Get your research if you can. Build up your resume. People will come to you. Don't waste your time going here and there and trying to network and things of that sort. Do your thing. That's my belief. I think things will come to you if you work hard enough. If you're there wasting your time trying to network and you don't, you forget to build your resume, what is that networking going to do for you when the times come? So I think work hard, get your scores, get your get your research, build up your resume. And then once you're working and once you're into residency, it might be much easier to do networking. But because people see it clearly, if you go to a attending and you're like, oh, I want to know more about you, they're like, okay, what are you doing? What are you going to say? But I'll leave it to the other people to answer. One way is go to conferences. If you have a case report, go to conferences. Conferences is the best way to network. You have a lot of people. Go read their research, and when you go to a conference like AHA, ACC, you'll read about people's research. It tells you what type of research gets accepted. It gives you a bunch of ideas how to do research, and going forward, you can pick up a bunch of mentors there. There's so many great people there. So best thing to do networking instead of Twitter and Insta and Facebook is the conferences. I don't think this Insta, Facebook stuff is really a good place to network. So medical conferences, going and presenting and talking to people there is probably a great way.
Thank you, Dr. Swaiman.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. So my next question is that as a internal medicine doctor, as all of you have explained really well that the scope of fellowships and everything, but my next question is pertaining to if somebody wants to work right after his residency, right after his IM residency, then what are the various jobs and what is the type of work that a IM resident gets to do? Because from my experience, what I have heard from various places, again, I'm not sure if they are like reliable, but that IM is a lot of paperwork, social work, not exactly what we imagine IM to be. So I would like Dr. Singh to please elaborate on what type of work IM doctor does after passing out from residency, if he does not wants to go to fellowship.
Oh, no. You'll have a high-paying job. You'll do great. You'll have no complaints. I mean, you have to work. You'll have paperwork because that's type of your work. I never went into like IM work, but I did some moonlighting and I've done stuff, and I have friends who have gone into work. You'll have a great life. I mean, regardless, you do a fellowship. I feel like I got myself into a mess because of my ego that I have to like go and do a fellowship and then a super fellowship type of thing. But you'll have a great life as an IM doctor. You'll make good money. Yes, you'll be working. There's like 7 on, 7 off, or you're working for 7 days and you're off for 7 days. But I'm telling you, man, you will have no regrets. If your regret is I'm working too much, then that's really sad. Go talk to the person working at a gas station. Who's working in the cold weather pumping gas, right? So I think it's perspective. So we sometimes lose our perspective going the road. We think, oh, we're privileged. Now things should come to us that one day we're all this big doctors, but it's not that bad, man. It's really good. I think people being a doctor is a privilege. And if you get to that point where you're working as a doctor, you're more than privileged.
And to add that, like, this is Rakesh here again. You will actually start getting emails from recruiters from your second year, like, the end of your second year and third year. You'll be getting tons of emails. You're not sure like how your email gets leaked, but you'll be getting offers. Hey, we have a hospitalist position here. We have a primary care physician spot open here. With good pays, you can negotiate with them. So there's just no problem in getting a job. Whatever you like, wherever you want to go. So that, and I've had people who've done like hospitalist position for like 3 years, get their money, have their bank balance full, and then start working on their fellowship and join a fellowship. So you are financially more stable at that point. You can also do that part or do that way. But yeah, finding a job is not at all a problem. And you'll be doing what you've done during residency. Paperwork is present in pretty much every job. You need to, as a physician, you need to make sure you're documenting everything that you're doing to your patients, because you can get sued. So there's a lot of paperwork that involves, be it if you're an interventionist or you're a, primary care physician, because you need to keep track of it. Whatever you're talking to the patient. So unfortunately, paperwork is something really hefty compared to India, because we don't really use, we use paper charts. We don't have a lot of chartings back in India. You talk to a patient, you give them a prescription, and you're done. And in clinics at least. But in US, there's just no way. You have to write your progress note, you have to write your HNPs, consult notes, etc. So that's what paperwork means. You're writing a lot of stuff in the computer.
Thank you, Dr. Singh and Dr. Rakesh, to clarify and clear my doubts on that. One more question that I have is that apart from, as Dr. Singh has very clearly said, that scores is the most important thing, and then research and everything. One thing that I want to ask about is about volunteer work. So from what I've heard, that volunteer work in past few years has been becoming important to various program directors. So my question is, how important is that in comparison to scores and research? And how to find it, and like what exactly is volunteer work for a program director in the USA?
I do all, like I scores, research, and then I do volunteer work. For example, we have a heart clinic in Mayo, and if you're researching at Mayo, you can come join us at the heart clinic. And what we do is we work with Salvation Army, and we basically once a month we go see patients who are underserved and they don't have the insurance, or volunteer for my example is you go work at our clinic in Nagpur Sahib or Punjab, or you come work with our medical camps. We do medical camps every year, so that's volunteer work. So when we talk about volunteer work, it has to be medically oriented, right? So I think that's what you're looking at, right? Like something that's medically oriented or is making a big difference in the world. It could be something really odd, but it's making a difference. Like if you're telling me, oh, you did this, or one thing what I see is like sometimes people fill out their application and they have so much stuff there.
I guess there is some.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay.
Yes, sir,
So
we can hear.
sometimes what you have is they think they have a 10-page application and they feel so good that I have a 10-page application, but nobody's going to read it because it has silly stuff like I love Bhangra or I love lifting or I love, like, nobody cares about that, right? Like when you're going through your application, your resume should be boom, boom, like to the point, and it has to have things that actually matter. If you're filling it up with fluff, nobody's going to read it. And they're going to think, oh, this guy's nothing. And they might miss the important things in your application. So if you're doing volunteer work, I think volunteer work is the third tier, right? Like if you have done the scores and you're having hard time finding research, and then you're like, okay, let me just do some volunteer work. But make sure that volunteer work is actually something exceptional. Like you worked with Red Cross and you went to Ukraine or something, or you did something that's meaningful and that's going to help you during the residency. That's the type of volunteer work that they're looking for, that, hey, this person set up this thing, and when he becomes my resident at my program, there's a likelihood he will carry that forward, and we might be able to start his whatever project he was working on here as well. So I think, don't fill out your application with things that don't matter, because that will lose the interest of the reader. Whereas make sure whatever you're filling out, make sure it actually is important. Like for instance, if you're at Mayo Clinic, come work with us at the heart clinic. We do it once a month. It'd be a great way for you to come, work with the attendings here, work with the people here, and probably end up getting a letter. That's the type of volunteer work I think I would support.
And is Rakesh here again? I know we talked a lot about research and Mayo, but I think the bottom line is the most important factors is scores, as Dr. Singh said, and then getting hands-on clinical. I think most of our goal is getting into residency here, right? Getting into great universities, getting into great fellowships. That's our second step, but the first step is getting into residency. For that, you need hands-on clinical experience, not observerships, not the volunteer work, but hands-on. So if you have like 6 months time, and I don't want you to focus on, okay, I will do 3 months of USC clinical experience, and then I'll do 2 months of research, and then I'll do 1 month of observership. If you're given the opportunity, just do 6 months of hands-on clinical experience, and get good letters from those places, and try to get connections at that places where you're doing hands-on experience. Talk to the mentors, talk to the attendings, talk to the residents who are there, to see if they know anybody who you can push, or even the same program where you are actually doing externships, because that is what it's becoming very crucial. working in a program like a community program which offers residencies, which is IMG friendly, that is like a trump card where you can impress them there and there. You're actually doing your interview every day. They're impressing them. If the mentor who worked with you can put in a strong word to your program director, that program director, that's really good. So hands-on experience, and then comes research, and then comes volunteer. I mean, if you're talking about research from AO with like publications in peer-reviewed journals, that's a different story. But which is hard for a lot of people, a lot of IMGs who are coming from India for 6 months, 1 year, whatever time they have, before they can apply for residency. So getting hands-on experience should always be first priority, and then the rest of them needs to be added. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Singh and Dr. Rakesh, to elaborate on that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Singh and Dr. Rakesh. I just got a question in the chat, in my chat. Since the focus on URIM, or as we call them, underrepresented in medicine, is increasing, would it affect IMGs, because IMGs are not considered a part of URIM?
Well, you're not. Sadly, you're not. I don't think you're considered like the underrepresented. Like, hey, the Indian population isn't. We need to get more doctors from India or Iran or something. No, I don't think that's the way they're looking at it. They like if you're I think an American citizen or went to the American school and you look like a certain way. I think that's the target. And the reason I tell you is, like, let's say I'm from India, right? And they feel like an Indian patient will be more open to me than to a white doctor. Or they're saying also that when the Indian patients sees me, they're more likely to come and share their medical needs. And that's what they've seen with the Hispanic community, the Black community, and then the big reason is getting different communities involved in the hospitals, so that we can touch all the patients and that nobody feels that that the hospital is not for them. So I think the target is still like American Indian, like they're not trying to get Indian into the door. I think it doesn't help you, but it doesn't hurt you. So it can help. It can only help you. It won't hurt you. Whatever this thing you're referring to, and it is a thing. I think a lot of the big institutes, big schools are going for that, especially university hospitals. They're trying to be more diverse in their nature. So it can only help you, it won't hurt you. But it's not geared towards you.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. Dr. Rakesh, would you like to add something in this?
Yeah, so from talking to medical students or people from undergrad who are applying for medical schools in US, as an Indian, they're having a disadvantage, because a lot of Indian parents here, they want their kids to become doctors. So there's actually, if a university, for example, if they have 10 people in a medical school, they want 4 Caucasian, 3 African American, 2 Indians, and 2 Chinese, just for reference. So for that 2 spots for the Indians, like there's like a ton of people who are applying it compared to someone from other community. So if this makes sense, so being an Indian, I don't think so it's adding any benefit at this point. It's actually a disadvantage for people who are here applying for medical schools, from my understanding.
We're going to take over the health system in America. It's pretty obvious. In 10 years, all the hospitals are going to be filled with Indians. And I think it's like an early way for Americans to say, listen, how can we protect ourselves that tomorrow, we can say, hey, 4 seats are for us and like the 6 can be for other people. So you're really taking over, and we're trying to help you take over more.
And the other thing is, a lot of American grads are coming with a huge debt when they join residency. They have their student loans to be paid off, which is like $100, $200, $300,000. And people coming from India, we don't really have anything. They're surprised to know my medical school bill was like $200 a year. So we don't really have any, such a huge weight on our shoulders. So a lot of people are aggressive in pursuing fellowships, and that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of, people from, IMGs going for fellowships, not just competitive ones, but other ones as well. But I think things are slowly turning around. I mean, you see fellowships getting harder as well. Like how residencies were a little, maybe a little less competitive in the past. Fellowships have also gotten, just getting harder and harder.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts, doctors. Now, I have a question. As I see this panel of doctors, I see amazingly successful people who have had an inspiring journey and have had impactful contribution in the field of medicine. And I find it hard to believe that you once stood where I am standing right now. If possible, if you could share what do you think were your strong points? What were your strong suits, attributes that helped you reach where you are today, and what was the secret behind it, and what were your weaknesses you believe and how you overcame them?
Well, I think the way I looked at it is I was very clear in my motives, right? Like you have to get to this place, right? You have to be you're at point A, you want to get to point B. And you have to know what are the things that I have to get to point B. Like there's some things that you might have, that you could do without, but there's some things that you have to have. And the thing was scores. You have to have scores. Like it's very hard to go to from point A to point B if you missed on the scores. You can still do it. With any scores, you can get a residency. With any scores, you can get a fellowship, but you might have to work harder, right? So you have to have scores. The second thing was research. The other thing was anything else that came along the way. So I think one thing was being honest to yourself, being honest, having, making this aura around you that people can trust you. Your attendings can trust you, your co-residents can trust you, your co-fellows can trust you. Being honest, being hardworking, making that sense that wherever you are, that people can rely on you. So whatever tasks you're given, it's, make sure you finish it, you complete it, you give it to your all. If you go into a research at, Mayo or whatever, don't leave it in the middle. That things become a habit and people talk to each other. So, like from my residency, I have contacts that when I'm applying into super fellowship or I'm applying for jobs, I'm going to go to them. So I think something that I always did was have my goals in hand and make sure you work hard enough. There's going to be bad days when you're going to feel awful and, you might not match and you're going to feel like what's going on. But one thing I will guide you is keep working. Just keep working. Just keep doing. Just don't sit around and wait for something to happen. Make it happen. So I think that was my thing. Always kept working. Like, if things weren't working out, if I wasn't getting into the things that I needed to get into, or I felt like the opportunities were just not opening up, just keep trying. Make sure you keep studying. Make sure your clinical base is strong. Make sure you just try to open other doors. If one door is not opening, go find another one. But just don't sit and don't wait for others to come to you. You go and you try to open up your own doors. So that would be my advice to the kids that are applying now.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. Like, be present and, you have to be really sharp at the present moment. Grab every single opportunity that you get. Hindsight, I look at many opportunities that I might have missed. I would have done a different way. I would have worked harder at certain point. There's always going to be regrets. So when you're living at that point, like make sure you're doing everything in your hands and leave the the result to the Almighty. Like, if you're not working hard, if you're not doing everything in your hands, it gets really hard. Looking at my residency life, I would say my scores weren't that great. They were like above average. So I think I did really well during my interviews. I didn't really get a lot of interviews, but from the ones that I got, I made sure I presented myself as someone who would likable and committed, honest. There's just one question that you will connect to the program director and they'll remember for that, and then they'll rank you and they'll email you back when you say, hey, I love the interview, it went well. And they'll reply, I got a reply from my program director, like, hey, I love that answer, what you told me. I was able to connect that with my kid, whatever. So there was this personal connection that will happen in like one question. That's all you need. So when you're there, like, make sure you're, we're not really that outspoken compared to the American grads. We don't, we're not, most of us are introverts. We get scared to talk to our mentors in medical school. That's what we're brought up since our kids, since our childhood, right? So you need to change that attitude. I've seen, medical students sitting with their legs on the table, in presentations, like not on the table, but they're so relaxed with their mentors. We're definitely opposite to that. So make sure you're practicing. If you get even like 2 interviews, that's enough. But make sure you're practicing with your co-applicants to sharpen your presentation skills, vocabulary skills. So that's I think that's very important. Weaknesses, as I said, scores is, as Dr. Singh was mentioning, scores are extremely important. Like, I was actually preparing for my steps while I was doing research, which hindsight, I said I would improve on certain things. I would have done it differently. Maybe I should have just stayed back in India, prepare for my exams, take my steps, and then apply for research. I didn't do that. So if you're preparing for steps, try to stay, focused on that. And get the score, because scores now compared to like 7-8 years ago, above average could have passed, but now I think scores are becoming extremely difficult. Because since COVID pandemic happened, I've heard from other applicants, my juniors who are applying, scores for like 250, 260 has become a norm. And a lot of programs are filtering out anything less than that, unless you have contacts or something like that. So make sure you're hitting that first step, getting into the, interview, or at least not getting filtered out is your scores if you're still preparing in that path. But if you guys are already done with your steps and you already have your scores, it can be changed. So you can work on the rest of the things like observation, not observation, but hands-on experiences, research and extra. But if you're still preparing, just focus on your exam. It's extremely important.
Thank you so much. That was very beautifully put. I think Dr. Rakesh has mentioned what he would like to change about his journey. Dr. Singh, if you were given a chance, to go back, what is that one thing that you would probably like to change about your journey?
So, if I see where I started, right? When I was 10, I was pumping gas in America. I'm now 36 at Mayo Clinic, a cardiology fellow. What more God could have given me, right? So I wouldn't change anything. I say, for me, it's like whatever God throws at me, there's a reason, right? So all my failures were for a reason. All my successes are for a reason. If you failed at something, it's probably because God has something bigger and bigger role for you. And that's why I say, whatever you come across, failures or not, people who are failing is because you're trying, right? If you don't try, you're not going to fail in life. You're just going to sit. So my thing would be just if you're failing in something, there's a reason for that, and you're falling. And listen, 2 years, when I went to India, I lost my fellowship, right? So I thought I could have been like, oh, you know what, end of that, right? So definitely, there's a lot of things I lost. There's a lot of stuff that has been thrown at me, and a lot of curveballs. But I always, say, keep working hard. Know you, do you, and you will end up at a better place. So I think, I'm really thankful to God for all the opportunity that I have gotten, and just continue to work hard and be blessed. And I'm telling everybody who's in this 182 participants that are here that you're going to be doctors one day, and enjoy your journey, do something else, and never forget where you came from, because you always, what you'll start doing, you'll start comparing to other people, like, oh, I'm not good enough, or he's gotten this, I don't have that. Remember where you came from, and we as international medical graduates, we have a lot of pressure, and we're really down the dumps, and to just be able to make it to residency is good enough. So be proud of what you're doing. To be able to score, take steps is a big privilege. To just be able to enter the room to take a USMLE. Realize that not everybody gets the opportunity to go take a USMLE exam. So you're so privileged to be in this room and listening to each other. And I'm just privileged to be here. And good luck to everybody.
Yeah, like one last point is, as Dr. Singh was mentioning, I think whatever you are achieving right now or have achieved in the past, you should be proud of. And don't think, if you get a low score, that means you are something, of a lower for someone who got a better score. Always be proud of yourself. Look at the life in a very good perspective. Even if you don't match 1 year, you make sure, you given everything to it, and you can try to identify certain points where you need to work on to improve your profile next year. and don't kind of completely defeat yourself. Don't be, super depressed or something. I was at a state of mind I think in February 2016 when I matched. I would know the results in March 15th. And my research position was ending in April, 25th. And I didn't apply for an extension of my research position. I was like, if I get in, I get in, or if not, that's fine. I still have a family back in India. I'm happy to go back and I do my post-graduation in India. I'm happy to earn there. Like, I finished my medicine, I try to make sure I'm happy with whatever that comes, in my way, and don't feel like, okay, so if I don't match, I'm done. I'm gonna sit and cry in my, house. No, that was not my idea. Having a backup plan is important. Hindsight, this is one more area I should have been done in a different way. I should have had a backup plan if I didn't match, but luckily I did match. But even if I didn't, I told my family, hey, I don't want to play again. I don't want to go through this again. I just want to go back, I'll come back to India and I'll be happy. Like, being happy with whatever you have is the most important thing, because you can do your GI fellowship, you can do, you'll be a big thing in University of Michigan or Hopkins, but there's always going to be a day where you're not happy with something. So there's always days, there's always things in your life that will make you uncomfortable. There's always next big thing. For example, we start at 15, 16 years when people say, if you finish your 12th exam, you're done, your life is set after you enter medical school. No, that's not right. Like, you all know that's not true. You do medical school and people say, oh, you have to finish your final year exams and you're done. And then you have to prepare for something else. And then you have to prepare. Unfortunately, that never stopped for me. I'm like 33, 32 right now. That didn't stop. Now I have my boards coming up. Now and after that, I have to get my visa, a green card application. Like, there's unfortunately, there's always something in your life that will keep your head down. But, just try to be happy with what you have, even if you don't achieve something else. For example, my other colleague got a green card in like 3 months. I don't have to compare with him. Like, I'm happy with whatever visa I'm on right now. If the US government decides to kind of cancel all the visa jobs and they send back to India, I'm fine. I'll go back to India and I'll practice. That's still fine. I have my family, I have my friends, I can still do whatever I want. So just have that state of mind, be relaxed, because that is very important. You don't have to be desperate in an interview or in your whatever you're trying to do. You don't have to be desperate. Just be happy with what you have. Try to enjoy whatever you have, because looking back, I feel I'm a much happier person when I was a fellow in Mayo, like when I was a research fellow, because I didn't have any of this patient work, or I didn't have all these worries that I have right now. I was much happier then. Like, even I was applying for residency, I had all this pressure, but still I was a more happier person then. So, life has that way of showing it to you. So just be happy with what you have. Don't put yourself under pressure too much. Just say, relax and be, enjoy whatever you're going through. This process is very sweet. Like, once you match into residency, you will really like what you went through this process. You learned a lot. Unfortunately, if you didn't match, that's fine. That's still fine. You're still here. You have you're a healthy person. You don't have any, major problems like other people do. Like, that's one thing we learned during our medical school. You see people with serious health issues, going on. So just try to be, happy with, composed, and, with whatever we have.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rakesh and Dr. Singh. And as much as I would have wanted this session to go on, we have to start another session on pathology. So I would really like to thank both of you for taking out the time from your schedules and joining us on for this session. And we would like to collaborate with you more on the future sessions that we'll be holding, and our team will be in contact with both of you. So thank you so much, sir.
You guys are doing exceptional work. Whatever you're doing, I actually dream to do that, like to help people or our future generations. And I'm so proud of all you guys for what you're doing. And I just hope that you continue, and everybody who's in this chat actually becomes part of your team. And I will always want to help in any way I can. Again, great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Rakesh.
you, Dr. Singh. Thank you, Dr.
Rakesh.
Rakesh.